Here we are. There you are. And here I am. And it's Gridiron 360. That's Dave. I'm Bill. We are back after it. It is Wednesday before the 2020 NFL Draft, which will proceed as expected tomorrow night. A little virtual draftage. We've gone through all the Power 5 conference prospects in various forms and fashions. Now we do want to talk a little bit, and hopefully it just takes about a couple casts, but maybe three, but I think we do it in two. We're going to go over prospects in this year's class that are either at an independent school, a.k.a. Notre Dame, or in a non-Power 5 or even smaller school. So there are some guys. We've got 12 guys here that we want to go over that will be drafted, and names that you want to know because these guys some of these, if not the majority, could be drafted in the first two rounds, certainly in the first 2 days. Mm-hmm. So let's get right into it. We're going to start with the number, and these are in no really rhyme or reason order. These are just, we're going to go through 12 guys we got. The first guy on the list, from Bakersfield, California, a junior quarterback for the Utah State Aggies, Mr. Jordan Love. He is a 6'4", 224 quarterback, has nice arms, 32, 5/8, big hands, 10.5 inch. Only ran a 4.74 at the combine, but I've said it before. I'm not too concerned about that with quarterbacks. A lot of people project him to go in round one at some point or another. If not, he'll go round two for sure. We watched this kid a lot this year because we knew at the beginning of the year there was dark horse Heisman talk. There was talks about his projection this year in the draft. He obviously played with a team that didn't have superstars all around it. If you watch his game, you do see that he does have he is freakish athletically, and he has, I think, some talent. But I think, that you just mentioned you saw was Blake Bortles. I don't see that. A lot of people have been talking about him as he relates to Patrick Mahomes. I don't necessarily see that, but I see more of that than I see the Blake Bortles, okay? But he's raw. I mean, I think he's even more raw than Mahomes was coming out of Texas Tech. And remember, Mahomes got to sit for a year behind Alex Smith and learn, and more than likely this kid will be picked up by a team that needs a quarterback now. So, Jordan Love, again, watched a lot of him this year. I saw more highlights his sophomore season of him. Didn't know as much, and he looked great. This year, he had some troubles. I expected more, and maybe it was that a lot of people expected more, and that weight on your shoulders. I mean, these are kids. Maybe he didn't translate it right. I really think it's more so due to the fact that, he didn't have a lot of weapons. He was taking it all on his shoulders. He was the only guy for the Utah State Aggies, and that he forced a lot of things when he needed to, that you got to win as a team. So tell me a little bit about your thoughts on Jordan Love, Dave.
I think he becomes a little bit more of of someone that's getting talked about because of, and I'm not comparing him to this player, but I'm comparing him to some of the rawness in the game and some of the different ways that he plays, but to the Lamar Jackson, like everybody trying to figure out, like, okay, this kid's kind of the opposite. He is, in a way, I kind of started thinking about the Blake Bortles comparison. Bortles was relatively agile, came from a non-Power 5 school. He wasn't great. I mean, he wasn't a runner, but he was, he actually did have some ability to move, ability to move. Bigger guy, big arm, but we saw that experiment and how it played out, in the NFL. I think there's, people are kind of high on him for, because I think some of that, like, athleticism, small school. There's just, but this is the part that concerns me the most with him. And understand that a lot of the talk that's been surrounded about why his stats went down drastically from sophomore to junior year was predicated on the fact that he lost a whole bunch of guys to graduation from his team. So, he had a whole new cast with him. And there is some validity to that. But even in his best year, he only completed 64% of his passes. And last year it's 62. To me, in college football, to be a round one talent, you got to be able to complete better than that. And I could see it in watching some of his games. Not enamored by ball placement. Just kind of, it seemed like, you're going to see guys that have to work for it a little bit more. And it's hard to project him because he does stand out, but he also, the competition he plays is different too. So it's hard to really gauge like how you would see that guy out there. And then obviously last year throwing 17 picks and leading FBS in picks, that scares the hell out of me.
Yeah,
and
like
coming out of
said,
college, it's because what are you going to do? What do you do when you're a first year, if you're a first rounder, and God help you if you're expected to start your first year? Let's just say even if he gets another year, but what if you have a Peyton Manning year? Well, Peyton Manning never threw 28 interceptions in college, but he did it in the pros. So what's a kid that threw 17 in college?
I hear you.
And that's something with Winston I saw. Winston
I know.
Came in and started throwing picks.
He said, I heard him in an interview, and he said he felt that he went through a lot of his picks trying to, re-envision those picks. And, what I give him credit for is like, and the guys were asking, were they, forced balls? Did you, were they tipped, this, that, and the other? And he owned a lot of it. He said, I forced a lot. Most of it is that's what
was the issue.
So he needs to, he'd be best suited, yes, just like I think a lot of rookie quarterbacks, to sit for a year behind a veteran and, have a good coach. And I don't know, man. With Miami having all their picks, what if they decide to do something kooky in the early and take somebody different than you think instead of a quarterback and use like that 20-something pick and take him? Because they've got Fitzpatrick. He could sit behind here. I don't know. He'll go, like I said, if not round one, early day two. But an interesting prospect. Not somebody I'd want on the Giants, but for the right team, maybe it'll work.
Well, the idea that he's a round one is what projection potentially, and even early round two is a little bit scary to me.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to dog him as a draftee. It's just, think about it. We're talking about a guy that's going to be potentially in the same round with Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, I think, set college football record for passing efficiency this year, right? If I remember correctly.
Like the greatest quarterback college season of all time.
Yeah, so you're talking about way plus 70%. Tua was plus 70% completion percentage. Herbert was about 66, 67 again, and that's probably part of the question why he doesn't get put in that. But again, we're talking about first rounders, but none of them have had the interception seasons that he's had.
Yep.
And that just
scares
me because if you bring a guy in the first round, the expectation is going to be that guy should be starting within 2 years.
Right.
Like, meaning by year two. If he doesn't, you can't hide this guy, but you can hide a guy that's got a lot of talent if you draft him in the third and fourth round for a couple of years and get his feet wet the right way. This guy might get thrown to the Lions, and maybe that's where the Blake Bortles thing comes in.
Right. All right, the next guy we want to talk about is from the state of Washington. He's a redshirt junior for the Boise State Broncos. Offensive tackle Ezra Cleveland. This guy stands at 6'6", 311, 33 3/8-inch arms, 9-inch hands, ran a 4.93 at the combine. It's pretty good for a tackle. His shuttle, 20-yard shuttle, 4.46, cone, 7.26. So those are... He had a nice combine there. This is a guy we wanted to bring up because, first of all, he spent most of this season blocking for a true freshman who, for a while before he kind of, got a little nicked up. People were saying maybe he could be a Heisman candidate as a freshman. That was a lot of talk early. But then, moving forward, is he going to be that? I don't know. But a lot of that, I think, is due. If you watch this guy's tape, he's a mauler. He's a hog molly. A lot of people question his play strength. That may be due to, the competition certainly isn't that of the SEC. But they ran the ball very well, seemed to be a good run blocker, seemed to, continue to finish on his blocks. And he's, quite frankly, a lot of people are talking, he's jumping up. There are a lot of people talking about there could be a mad run at tackle in the first round. I don't think Cleveland goes in the first round, but because of that run, he could go. I think he'll go in the second for sure, if not early. So we'll see if that actually happens.
I have seen his name, initially, probably about, 3 weeks ago before the talk really started. I mean, we kind of already hit those guys. It was, Mekhi Becton was probably the one climbing the fastest just due to his measurables. But then obviously you had Wills, Wirfs. I'm missing one other one. Thomas. Yeah, Thomas. You had those guys, and those guys have been mainstays in the first round. But I've started to see with some of the more popular talking heads, meaning not just kind of random mock drafts, starting to put him later into the first round, which is kind of interesting because it really seems like the offensive line. I mean, we're going to talk about another guy here right after this. It's another guy that's moving up and now all of a sudden in play. So maybe the run at tackle, I mean, people are going to get him, but there might be some people getting some really good tackles along the way, and this is – guy's
big guy.
6'6", he's big.
Guy.
And he's got room to put on some more weight if he wants to be more functionally strong. But I got to be honest with you, they kept that kid clean against Florida State.
I know. That's a lot of the highlights you see of him this past year is against you guys. So let's go to the next guy. So Cleveland, look out for Ezra Cleveland. Look out for him. But another offensive tackle from Texas, a redshirt senior for the University of Houston Cougars, Mr. Josh Jones at 6'5", 319, 33 7/8 on the arms, 10/8 on the hands, 5'2", 740. I don't have his cone or his shuttle. Threw up 24 on the bench, which is nice. We did a mock draft on air between you and I, and you took this guy in the first round. I can't remember who it was for, like Seattle or something. But you took him. So, what are your thoughts on Mr. Josh Jones?
Well, here's kind of the interesting thing. If you really look at this offense that he was playing, and this guy, was blocking for probably, in my mind, one of the most athletic guys at quarterback in the NFL in D'Eriq King. Mm-hmm. He popped out to me big time when I saw him play there. Obviously, he's moved on to Miami for his senior year, but that's a tough quarterback because he's a tuck it and go. He
didn't play this year.
Who?
King.
Well, he played in the first four games this year. 4 games. Right. But and the point is, but he played with him the year before.
Yeah. Oh, he's redshirt senior, man.
So
he's been there.
You've got to be able to you've got to be able to account for that. I think, he's got some rawness to him, and I think that's just a reality of playing in Houston. And, you remember they've had some coaching changes over the years, even their offense. I mean, they had even with their offensive coordinator, he went. Then they got to Holgorsen because of who's the other coach that left there before Holgorsen. Anyway, I'm blanking. I do that a lot. But, this he's athletic. He's powerful. But he's just, he's probably going to need more footwork and that kind of stuff. Yeah, so he's just going to, I like him. I think this is a kid, again, I'm starting to see him more and more getting mentioned in those top tiers. And probably who I'm seeing the most is kind of talking about Mekhi Becton. That's the guy that I'm seeing sliding down the board.
Yes. So good. All right. Well, this guy, he's nasty. If you watch him, he seems to play nasty. And, I think I've mentioned before, we got a guy in, second round a couple years ago out of UTEP, an interior offensive lineman. And Will Hernandez. And he's got this guy could put on some more weight, but he's a good interior offensive lineman, got the perfect build, but he's nasty. He's nasty, and you really, in the NFL, you need that. I don't need anybody getting penalties thrown on him, but I need somebody that's got a little bit of nastiness with them on the field and that plays like, and Hernandez plays like, this is my brothers on my team. Anything he doesn't like, he's like big brother. So.
Yeah, he kind of reminds me a little bit of a guy, Olin Krutz. Remember him playing for the Bears?
Mm-hmm.
He was an undersized center, made multiple Pro Bowls, but was I remember somebody for Tampa tackled their running back a little hard, and I remember he came over and did like a WWE flying knee into the guy's side as he was laying on the ground.
Fantastic.
Yeah, he plays with a little bit of an edge, so I like that guy. I like the Hernandez. That's definitely a good rep to him, but if the guy plays this way, I think he's got an opportunity to do something really special here.
All right, well, let's go on to the next guy. We are moving to a smaller school here. And this kid is from right up the way, actually, from Decatur, Georgia.
Oh, yeah.
He's a senior for Lenore Rhine, a safety, Kyle Duggar. We bring him up because he, too, is a name that's starting to pop up. He's actually kind of held a pretty solid stance on the boards at the safety position in terms of this year's prospects. He's 6'1", 217, 32 7/8 on the arms, 10 3/8 on the hands, ran a 4.49 40, 17 reps on the bench. Nice vert and broad jump with 42 inches and 134 inches respectively. See a potential projection in round 2 for him. May slide to 3 in my mind. Looks like they have Gerald Sensible, not Cody Sensible, is a comp on one of these sites. What do you know about Mr. Duggar? Anything whatsoever? I mean, let's be honest. We don't see a lot of Lenore Rhine tape, so you're looking at a lot. You're digging up stuff, looking at highlights.
I didn't, but this is the thing that's impressive to me. And I usually try to be careful with measurable stuff. But 6'1", 217 is a physically well put together safety. Generally going to fall probably more to your strong safety role. But then this guy goes and runs a 4.49. So I get why people are looking at him, and I'm looking at a picture of him, and his muscles have muscles.
Yeah, he doesn't. He looks like don't talk to me.
Yeah,
don't talk to me. I'll kill you. It says one of the things says looked like a Men Among Boys on tape.
yes.
Maybe he should have went to a bigger school.
Yeah, but you know what? Hey, listen, I got a guy that went to the University of Buffalo that nobody knew about, and he's pretty damn good in the NFL, right? These guys do exist. And you look at, you kind of expect this, but at the same time, safety can be a tough place, a tough place to pick up a lot of stats, especially depending upon how well your team plays. But he did. He racked them up. He racked up stats. And I'm interested to see him. I guess I don't really have a lot to offer about him, but any guy that's getting, looked at from I didn't even know where that school was. You had to tell me where that school was. I thought it was in Canada.
Secondary guy, which, the secondary is very important with the high-flying pass attacks in the NFL. So, and he is pretty sizable, and he does have speed. So an interesting character. Somebody that, you should probably learn a little bit about if your team needs safety, but expect him to go day 2. Like I said, if not in the second round, I don't think he'll go past the 3rd based on what we're seeing out of a lot of the chatter about him.
Yeah.
Okay, next guy. This kid is from California. He's a red shirt junior. Also played for the Boise State Broncos. He's coming up in the edge rusher category. Again, this year there's really one guy and then the next grouping, and then there's like another grouping not too far behind, but it's still not like these a lot of these valuable edge rushers. So you might be good to learn some of these potential diamonds in the rough. Mr. Curtis Weaver. Again, edge for Boise State, 6'2", 265, 32 3/8 arms, 10-inch hands. I don't see any combine numbers on him, but this guy, I did watch a little tape because I was watching some of these other Boise State guys on here, and one of the things I see in here on his comp, and when I look at his stats that he was really pretty good at, is his sack totals. He likes to play on the other line of scrimmage, tackles for loss. This last year had 13.5 sacks, man. It's pretty good. The year before that, 9.5. The year before that, 11. So if that tells you anything, this guy plays on the other side of the football.
I mean, here's going to be my thing is it's like Boise State is like they generally will find and put like one or two guys somewhere, every couple of years, one or two guys in the first round. Defensively, I'll admit I still have Shea McClellan stress for that nightmare with the Bears. But then again, you have guys like Van Der Esch that go and play. And so,
And I like him.
I
like Leighton
do.
Van Der Esch.
And so, I guess I'm just trying to think about, certainly their defense looked very good against Florida State in the second half in particular, which is the most that I had to watch them this year. But we also made everybody look good on defense all year. So
I hear you.
So it's just it's hard to really tell with these guys, whether they translate. I mean, he is a little
he's not
shorter,
big, but
wide for
depending on the scheme, maybe he's I don't know, man. He packs on, he might be able to pack on a little bit of weight, but it's this height. But at the same token, you can't deny playing the sack totals and the tackles for loss. The guy has a knack for playing on the other side of the ball. So he comes off and he's disruptive, and that's in today's NFL, you need that. So let's go on to another edge guy while we're at it. This kid's from Charlotte, North Carolina. He's a senior for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, Mr. Julian Okwara at 6'4", 252, 34-3 ace on the arms, 10 1/4 on the hands. Don't see many combine numbers. See that he put up about 27 reps on the bench. That's pretty strong. I don't. Let's see. Is he related?
Yes.
He is related.
Romeo.
He is related to Romeo Okwara, who also played there, didn't he?
Yep, played at Notre Dame.
Yep. All right, nice. Listen, this kid. Notre Dame certainly. You can see a lot of them because they have their own channel. But he's a taller kid. I think he could stand to pack on weight. You're talking about the kid before. I said he was 6'2", 265 or something like that. 6'3". This guy's
6'4".
This guy's 6'4", 230 something. So or 252. So I mean, he could probably stand to put on some weight. He does look a little lanky, but maybe that helps him, like some of those guys are that, and they have the, they use that to their advantage with that bend on the edge. So his brother, I don't think we had him on the Giants for a minute. I feel like, I know we did, and I don't think he ever. Maybe a solid rotational guy you might get out of this kid. And I'm basing that on some of the games I've watched them. Their defense wasn't like, wow. Their interior defensive linemen at Notre Dame were nice. They were good looking.
Yep.
But I didn't see anything off the edge that wowed me from Notre Dame.
Yeah, and the other part is he doesn't grade out particularly well on the running side, so handling the run. So again, and you're talking about his size. I'm assuming he's going to be a stand-up rusher is probably how they'll use him. He did have a better junior year than a senior year. Again, so you just you get worried about, has a guy hit a ceiling or a wall? Notre Dame, I watched him a few times this year, pretty, the whole game front to back, and their defense didn't wow me, but sometimes it was, we saw them, I think, what did they play? Was it Louisville? I think you and I were watching that game. Was it Louisville? No, maybe it wasn't Louisville. But anyway, when I saw these guys line up, Notre Dame has guys that look like they can go out there and play. Like they do get athletes still, even though they're not what they used to be as far as their team-wise, how productive they were for all those decades in the 80s, 60s, 70s, whatever. I don't know. I see this guy. I think you're right. It's just maybe a rotational guy unless he does something special with his body.
Okay. All right. So that's 6 guys we've gone through. Jordan Love, quarterback, Utah State. Ezra Cleveland, offensive tackle, Boise State. Josh Jones, offensive tackle, Houston. Kyle Duggar, safety, Lenore Ryan. Curtis Weaver, edge rusher, Boise State. And Julian Akwara, edge rusher, Notre Dame. In no particular order, just guys on the board that you'll probably see go off in the first 2 days that we want to make sure you know about. And we'll knock this out and get on to the next 6 and be all done with it. We'll see you next time
On the gridiron.
Bye-bye.